Who do I look more like? Bernie Sanders? Or Robert De Niro? Or John Lithgow? I have no idea. Where to begin? Strap yourselves in, denizens of the internet, because this is going to be a bumpy Hackintosh ride. Warning! This is not a build a Hackintosh guide video. I don't do guide videos. The number of variables involved is staggering. An OS point release, a tiny teeny one, can make a guide completely obsolete, as you'll see today. And I'm not interested in keeping up the guides. My preference is to provide my Hackintosh journey. If it inspires you to build one, great. If it dissuades you from building one, even better. I like planning out my shows. This particular one started out as a professional music composing Hackintosh build with the added challenge of getting Thunderbolt 3 working. That would have been enough for any satisfying Hackintosh adventure. But the siren song of the 28 cores and 56 thread count of the new Mac Pro and the vision of hundreds of effects-laden logic tracks dancing in our heads, things turned into a drunken tech orgy of excess and Hackintosh hubris. Anyway, this is going to be a two-part video. Part 1, I'm calling, "What the hell were you thinking?" Part 2 will be called, well, I hope there is a part 2, because if I don't succeed in making this music machine, I'm committed to buying back $2,500 worth of computer parts, and there won't be a part 2. And as of this taping, I do not know if I succeeded or failed. Hello, everyone in Hackintosh land. I'm with one of the world's greatest studio musicians and I guess producers. Is that an accurate appraisal of your global standing?
I'm one of the best on my street.
Okay, that'll do. Anyways, so we're building a Hackintosh for you, and we wanted to talk about it, but you chose to do this incognito for several reasons. But let's start with why a Hackintosh.
Money, really. I've had a Mac forever, since the Mac Plus days. I moved to a G4, or a G3, then a G4, and then a cheese grater 5.1 in about 2010, I think. And when that stopped cutting the mustard, I upgraded the CPUs. I'd have 12 cores at 3.3, and I got a lot of RAM, 64 gigs of RAM, and a bunch of solid-state hard drives. But it's still struggling to keep up, and it's tough keeping it running Mojave. I don't think it's going to run Catalina happily. And I knew it was time. It's 10 years with the same computer. Normally that upgrade costs me $3,000, maybe $4,000, but when the new Mac Pro finally came out, and I was thrilled, oh good, they finally made something with PCI slots, because I don't want all external drives. I want to be able to keep all my drives and be able to change the RAM and put all the audio stuff in there. So like, hooray, new Mac Pro. And then I do the online system, and it's, the base system for me is $10,000.
And even that, is that system adequate for you? It's, what is it, 8?
That would be still, I'd have to add more drives to that. That's without adding all the solid-state drives and the added RAM. To pay $10,000 for something that may only be a 10% or 15% improvement, I can't rationalize that. So I started debating the dark side.
And why are we shooting this incognito?
Well, I think a lot of the Apple faithful aren't too happy with talk of being less than loyal to the Apple brand. I certainly didn't want to be in this position. But from everything I looked at, the iMacs are great and the iMac Pro's great, but everybody talks about it throttles the CPU and you can't expand it and you can't change the RAM, you can't change the drives. That's not the way most musicians want to work. And some people go with Mac Mini, but then you got to have a lot of peripherals and you don't have a strong graphics card. There's just so many limiting options, and I'm used to the cheese grater where I was able to custom make the system I need for the audio requirements I have.
But the new one comes with wheels.
Oh, okay, screw this. Let's get the one with the wheels then. No. If they would just have made this box with new CPUs and Thunderbolt, I'd be happy. That's all I want is the same Mac Pro I have, but with Thunderbolt and, some faster chips. And, if they made that for less than $5,000, I'd think, cool. But they don't. Then again, you put together a pretty mean-looking Hackintosh system, and it's less than half what the new Mac Pro costs.
So, we're working towards a 16-core, 32-thread Hackintosh, and it's coming in at about 3,500, right?
Canadian, yeah. I think.
Canadian, yeah.
But it's all about music is real time. Everything's happening now, and timing, even off by a tenth of a second, a hundredth of a second, is no good. Everything's got to work in real time, repeatably the same. So I'm really interested to see. I've heard varying reports about reliability of Thunderbolt performance under Hackintosh systems, and there's a lot of live input. I've got 48 channels of audio coming and going, often at the same time. So it's a big experiment, but if it works...
We don't know on our end whether it'll actually suit everything that you need, but...
You told me you knew. You told me, yeah, for sure, it's a lock.
Well, that was before you bought all the gear. Well, thank you very much again for your time.
Okay.
How about a riff to end it?
So, copyright. No, it's not.
So that cheeky little video was where this all started. Piece of cake. As a professional musician and composer, mystery music guy needed Thunderbolt 3 compatibility. Already, we were in risky, strange territory. There was just not a lot of data out there on successful music Hackintosh builds with Thunderbolt. I read and viewed many successful i9 9700K Gigabyte Z390 Designare builds, but none of them were connected to pro audio gear like the Apollo X8P. There was one golden build on Tony Mac's X86 that listed many successful connections to pro gear, but I was skeptical, as the Gigabyte board used the Titan Ridge Thunderbolt chipset and not the Alpine Ridge version that Apple uses. Still, this was the closest thing I could find with any possibility of working. And I've had lots of experience building Intel-based Hackintoshes on Gigabyte boards. I love them. I felt cocky. But the 9900K had only 8 cores and 16 threads. Mystery Music Guy was still using an old cheese grater Mac Pro with 12 cores and 24 threads, while the 9900K smokes that machine. The lure of the new Mac Pros with 8, 12, 16, 24, 28 cores drew us to the new AMD systems, in particular the 3950X with its 16 cores and 32 threads that was getting brilliant reviews, but I could not find any successful AMD Thunderbolt Pro audio implementations. So, did I do the smart thing and drive the paved road of Intel Hackintoshing success? No! We bashed through the guardrails of sanity and careened down the AMD dirt road into Satan's breakfast patio! ASRock had come out with a couple of Thunderbolt-enabled AMD, ITX, and ATX motherboards. People were successfully Hackintoshing the ASRock Tai Chi and the ITX version of that board, but we went for the ASRock Creator, the ASRock X570 Creator, and the main reason is that this thing allegedly supports Thunderbolt 3, because that icon of Hackintoshing, Snazzy Labs, had just released a video where he pronounced that this AMD Hackintosh with that board was the easiest build he had ever done. Boy, did that drop a giant stink bomb on the Hackintoshing community. Okay, so we went against everything I knew and believed in and rolled the dice and bought this insanely expensive motherboard. But there were concerns early on. Snazzy did not try Logic Pro and did not test any Thunderbolt audio connections that we knew of. But was that going to stop us? No, because we had lust for cores. Lust for cores! Yes, this is the third gen 9 Ryzen 9 3950X. Yeah. It was full steam ahead, but we soon hit another roadblock. Apple had updated Catalina OS to 10.15.2. It turns out that 10.15.1, the one that Snazzy used, worked fine with AMD Clover bootloader builds, but not 10.15.2, which I will call just 2 from now on. In fact, 2 had caused a seismic shift in Lando Hack. It forced many in the AMD camp to turn away from Clover to the emerging OpenCore bootloader, primarily because the people making Hackintosh tools said that Clover would no longer be supported on AMD after 10.15.1. OpenCore was the future. It was the only game in town, and it was compatible with 2. Clover would continue to work fine on Intel Hackintoshes 2 and beyond, but it was uninvited from the AMD party. I was more familiar with Clover anyway, so why not just stay with Catalina 10.15.1? That would have been easy. But no, I'll tell you why. Because my associate had bought a Radeon 5700 XT graphics card. So here we have the Nitro Sapphire 5700 XT. Do you know what one of its curious requirements is? It's only compatible with Catalina 10.15.2 and up. We were trapped. Plus, I didn't see the point of end-of-lifing ourselves needlessly. Our only choice was the new kid in town, the OpenCore bootloader. Now, OC, as we like to call it, is a different beast compared to Clover. Now, before I go on, I'm curious, is there anyone still listening or watching this? 'Cause you're nuts! But I love you. Clover is much easier to build a Hackintosh with right now because it has a lot of history. And by easier, I mean Clover is like hosting a ringworm rodeo in your anus versus OpenCore, which is more like doing your own prostate biopsy without anesthesia. Now, this is not entirely true if you follow one simple rule. Search for what are called golden builds, which are successful Hackintosh builds based on a specific motherboard, processor, and graphics card. If you buy exactly those components and follow the guide, you will have a very high chance of success. The reason the forums are filled with unintelligible traffic is that idiots are trying to Hackintosh PC components with little to no history or documentation, like I did. I'm not going to get into comparing Clover and OpenCore here in depth. I mean, if you'd like me to, leave a comment below. But let me cut to the chase. Trying to get this ASRock Creator board working was just impossible. I was going crazy. Nothing I tried worked. The people on the forums, they couldn't help me. My iPhone was being filled with pictures, not of kittens licking Great Danes, but of kernel panics. This is what Hackintoshers do, and what the heck do we do with all these lovely pictures, you ask? We post them on forums, hoping someone, somewhere, anyone, would recognize our kernel panic and give us a hint. Like, you gotta turn off your SIP, or, you have a mismatched FW runtime services OpenCore.efi. It's like losing a pet and putting pictures of it up all over your neighborhood in hopes that someone will find it and call. It's been a long time since I was defeated by a Hackintosh build. Actually, I've never failed, but failure was staring me in the face, and it wasn't pretty. So, after days of trying, I was getting depressed. It looked like the AMD-powered music system with 16 cores and 32 threads was a bust, even before we could measure audio latency issues with the AMD setup. And the decision was made to retreat! Retreat! And go with the tried and true Gigabyte Z390Z Designare motherboard and back to the warm embrace of an Intel 9900K CPU and vanilla Clover build. But that did not mean we were out of the woods. Did I get the Thunderbolt interface working? Did I manage to get it to connect to the Apollo audio interface? What about his legacy Orion audio interface? And what about the chip, that very expensive AMD 3950X chip? Did I just hand it over to Value Village, or did I take another crack at trying to create an OpenCore AMD Hackintosh? And what about test results? Did I do a lot of test results? Who knows, denizens? Till next time, what is it, Wancho? What? Chevy Chase? Huh. Yeah. I think there's a resemblance. But before he gained weight. Yeah, thank you. Till next time, denizens. So long.